Hello and welcome to Blasters and Boomsticks with your host Dan and Grant. Mate, how are you tonight?
Fuck you. Oh, I'm sorry, the devil made me do it. That's my excuse. I'm good. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thank you very much. Yeah, as you probably guessed from that, we're reviewing The Conjuring 3, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Okay, so we'll kick it off with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren take on one of the most sensational cases of their career after a cop stumbles upon a dazed and bloody young man walking down the road. It's like a Friday night in Mansfield. Accused of murder, the suspect claims demonic possession as defense, forcing the Warrens into a supernatural inquiry unlike anything they've ever seen before.
Voice degree Moida, read all about it.
The Conjuring, the devil made me do it. Right. So yeah, this year, mate. It should have came out last year, but due to coronavirus, it's hit this year. Eagerly anticipated. A lot of people really excited about it. Loads of buzz, loads of talk about it. We've both seen it now. What's your initial thoughts on part three? But I think film 8 overall in the franchise.
It was the boost in the arm I think the series needed. Going back to kind of the main, because you get the main plot line thread, the three Conjuring movies. The others are kind of spin-offs, aren't they? Like Annabelle and The Nun and stuff like that. So to me, yeah, I think it went in an entirely different direction. I think it toyed with us to say this is going to kind of get more of the same, and then it kind of pulled a CSI, Ed and Lorraine Warren. So, yeah, very, very pleased with it. What about yourself?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, mate. I think it's not as strong as the other two movies, but I think it did need, like you said, that it did need to do something different. It couldn't have been another haunted house.
No.
And I think obviously the opening we have a little spoilers and stuff, but we have it opens with an exorcism of a little boy, so
Yes.
we're already on familiar ground.
Yeah.
But by then moving away from that and having a court case, having an investigation, like you said, having Ed and Lorraine doing CSI Conjuring, it's different but familiar, and it works really well. It's directed by Michael Chavez, who is not just before this he did, and I'm going to attempt to say this properly. We've just been over this before we start recording. I'm going to forget already, but I think the Curse of La Llorona. Oh, yeah, which I wasn't going to drop out, and as you suggested, say the Curse of La Bamba.
Yes, I think you nailed that, I would say.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yeah, well, I'm quite proud of myself. I'm going to give myself a little biscuit later.
If he hasn't nailed it, please let him know in the comments.
Yeah, and I'll have to
Delete them.
regurgitate said biscuit. Yeah, so it was just, I think, like you said, it's what it needed. It was familiar but fresh. The fact that they weren't, or there was a demon entity in it, that wasn't the main foil for Ed and Lorraine this time. I think that gave it a different edge. I'm not necessarily saying that the villain of this, if you can call it a villain, was as didn't have as much presence as, let's say, Bathsheba or Valek, yeah, or even Bill, the old man in the armchair. But it was just nice to see them go in a different way. And the funny thing that I've seen is a lot of people who have complained about it seem to be the self-proclaimed. I'll probably upset a few people. Self-proclaimed Satanists. The Satanists who sit in the mum's basement. Not the actual practicing set. I'm not just in the actual practicing Satanists, but the ones who like wearing Slipknot t-shirts and have never listened to a Slipknot record. That those type of people. Okay, yeah, that's not how Satanists do think. Well, it's a film, of course. It's not going to be. It wouldn't be very interesting if.
Yeah, I'm sure that we don't. I'm sure isn't there some kind of like rule that you can't show exactly It's like with bomb disposal and bomb making, you can't do exactly that in case copycats. So why would you want to?
Yeah. So, but yes, we pick up. I think it's a few years after Conjuring 2. I think it's about sort of 4 or 5 years
Yes.
after Conjuring 2. So we have this exorcism at the start. The entity that's in the boy forces Ed to have a heart attack.
Yes.
And it's quite, it knocks him off his feet. Lorraine's obviously really concerned about him. So if we could move into a couple of spoilers, I think we can't really avoid it talking about the story.
No, definitely not.
But
excuse me,
it's all right. So
trying to add to the atmosphere, you see, folks. That was a demonic sniffle.
Yeah. So was it? How do they pronounce it? Was it Arnie? Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the demon, Arnie's sort of very protective of the young boy who's been exorcised, and asks the demon to come into himself. But it's only Eddie witnesses that at the start.
Yes.
So while Ed's out of the picture, a murder happens, and that's where we go. He claims he was possessed. Ed backs that up because he saw the transition happen, and that leads off the investigation. And it takes its time as well. That's what was interesting about this one. It's not like the other two where the stuff happens, the families are assaulted by whatever demon spirit, everything, and then Ed and Lorraine are contacted. They go in, they record stuff, blah blah blah. Whereas this, it takes Ed and Lorraine out of that because they have to do their own investigation. It's, like you said, they're piecing everything together. And because there's a time limit, it's not like obviously like we're going to stay with a family until it's done. It's if they don't get something done quick, Arnie's going to be sentenced to death. And of course, it's based on a real life case.
Yeah.
Which obviously the other movies are exaggeration, or you probably say exaggerations, interpretations of cases that documented by Lorraine Warren. This is actually there's sort of factual evidence towards this. It was a true crime case, but I think it's still handled quite delicately. I don't think these sort of they didn't give it too much fanfare.
Yeah.
I think they treat the case side of things quite respectfully.
There's, from my perspective, I think it's a strength and a weakness of the movie. Is it's not quite as grand as the first two. Like you said, it's not as strong, it's not as grand. But at the same time, it's quite a bit intimate.
Yeah.
And it's not just about Ed and Lorraine. It's not about their job. It's about them, how they met, how they care for each other, and how vulnerable it leaves them to each other. And I think as a procedural kind of, like you said, investigation, I wouldn't be amiss to them kind of, if they said, we're kind of bored with this now, the actors or something. I think it could lend well to maybe a limited run series.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me, like a really stellar episode or mini series of something. The investigation, not the big budget, like we have to do everything now and everything's overblown up. So you can see why some people may be a bit let down with it. But I feel it worked. It needed to mix it up.
Yeah.
And yes, there's a few little things I'd say. And yes, I think the villain is not as good. I think they're not really. It's a bit murky in certain areas, and I think once you know what's happening with said villain or antagonist, I think it does lose a lot of fear factor.
Yeah.
Because you as an audience member felt safe and you're like, oh, okay. But again, I'd argue that's not exactly the point of the movie.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know what you thought. If you thought there was anything you had any concerns with, any issues with, or
I think that's it. I think it was I mean, watching the first two Conjuring films was an experience in itself, and I'm a jumpy person. You know, I'm by nature put anything on, any horror film on, and I probably will jump. Becky, my other half, she laughs her socks off constantly because nothing phases her. Whereas I can be, I'm like a cricket. I'm here and there.
Whereas, yeah, you're a part kangaroo, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. So obviously the first two Conjuring movies did get me. I think the certain elements, your memorable stuff, the hand clap, and Bathsheba when she's on top of the wardrobe, you see for the first time, yeah. And this stuff. What I loved about the second one is where it's the when the kids are seeing things. I suppose they do it in the first one as well, where the little girl's on the bed and she's saying there's something stood behind you, there's something in the corner of the room, and they're absolutely terrified. Some great actors throughout those series, but like Conjuring 2 throws everything at it, and I think sometimes it was a little bit more effective in its scares. Whereas this, for me, I watched it and nothing made me jump, nothing. And and people like to be scared of that, but I didn't hate it for it. I wasn't disappointed that nothing made me jump, because I was really invested in, like you said, in Ed and Lorraine, more so in this one than the others. I mean, in the other films, you do get like when is it the second one where Ed's singing? Is it Can't Help? Is it the Elvis song?
Can't Help Fall in Love. Is it?
Yeah, and he's sort of messing about, but he's singing it with with Lorraine as well, and they talk about how they met, to the kids.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So it's nice to have an extension of like you said, quite right, their feelings for each other. You get a very nice conformed idea, an ideal of them as a unit. And I think as long as they keep, if they are going to make more, as long as they keep those two guys, so Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, keep them going. I think it'll work regardless of what.
Yeah, the MVPs of the series.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and because people are invested in them as characters, and they do sell it, and they have great chemistry, and it doesn't matter who's around them and what's going on around them, what's thrown at them. Those two would really help it. And it's like Annabelle Comes Home. They bookend that film. And I dare say, their bits are more interesting than the main story. But I'm all for more.
Like I said, I'd love to see more motivation and stuff. I like that they've tried to humanize it, but for spoiler purposes, like we get this scene. There's some tension. The scene in the morgue.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that was great, but then we repeat that again later on.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit away from it. I was pleasantly surprised when we get the old retired preacher that had been like working with, and he's just got that evil face, and you're thinking, you're going to be involved. You've worked it too long, and then it like dangles it in front of your face, and you're like, oh no, it's going to be so obvious, and then it isn't. Which again, so they're still all trying to subvert in the most positive of way, Rian Johnson. So don't start like salivating at the thought of.
Yeah, I mean, John Noble. The thing is, I think that's probably one thing that I did find. What annoyed me a little bit was they cast John Noble as Father Kastner, the retired priest, and because he had such a big impact as Denethor in Return of the King, and he was such an arsehole in that. And anything I've seen him in since then, he's played a prick. So as soon as you see his face, you just think, right, there's going to be something more. Then he's not just going to be straight out. They wouldn't just cast him because they could have cast anyone as if it was just an old priest to give a warning off or to give a bit of friendly advice. Then get John Lithgow. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It could have been anyone, but if you're casting John Noble, then I think he's a fantastic actor. I always love seeing him, but I think that you sort of almost give part of the plot away by casting him. But I think it was nice that they brought in I can't remember his name, but it was the same actor who played the priest in the other Conjuring movies. He did the blessing. He did it with the blessing at the start of Annabelle.
And isn't he?
So
Am I mistaken in thinking that he's also in Insidious 2 with Patrick Wilson as well?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so yeah, it's great. It's a universe that's had its ups and downs. This is definitely more of a highlight.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I'm definitely giving it a 2 thumbs up. And I do recommend it, and I think, but it's a recommendation that people who are fans of the series should enjoy it, but don't go in expecting a retread of 1 and 2.
Yeah.
It definitely tries to do its own thing.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same. It's one of those as you're going along, I was finding myself enjoying it, but part of you is going, it everything needs to come together at the end. If it doesn't, it's like it could have fell flat on its face.
Yeah,
Luckily, it does. So yeah, I'd say I'd recommend it. It's a return to form, and for me, you can skip the universe and just stay with the main. It's that strong, in my opinion, the main run of films, the 3 so far. If you just are interested in that and you think I'm not going to watch it because the quality of some of the others, then ignore those. These are the ones that matter. These are the ones that will keep
yeah,
this universe going.
yeah,
And thankfully, this is a really strong effort where it's one of these films that I'm inclined to think will get better with age, possibly.
yeah, yeah.
I really do think that it could do. Um, there's just one question I need to ask you about it. It's always bothered me, and I'd like to ask you now in our review.
Yeah, yeah.
It's on the trailer, so everyone else, if you've not seen it, you can put right in the comments or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you know when Lorraine is kind of in the middle of in the forest at night. She's kind of in the groove of and she uses the 2 girls.
Yep.
And she gets close to the edge. Patrick Wilson's going, whoa. And then she turns back to him, and then an hand comes off the cliff, off the cliff and pulls her. What the hell is that? Is that the monster hanging off the cliff like with its other arm or whatever? It's always like,
yeah. It's I think sometimes they don't overly worry about things like that. I think they just they wanted that pull. They wanted her to be in some kind of real danger and having to rush off towards the end of a cliff, and they needed that pull. And I think she's probably quite right. Some thought just didn't go into it. Someone just went, "What happens if there's a ghost?" Because it doesn't go. Because we sort of go down that sort of thing that there's a Satan worshipper who's pulling the strings. So it could the only thing is it was either her or Arnie who was in prison at the time.
I'm hoping it is just a random arm.
Yeah.
I bring it up because it's obviously funny, and it's just watching the trailer wasn't excited. And that doesn't always bother me because I think sometimes I got so excited people can cut a great trailer out of a shitty movie.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was like, oh no, is it just scare for scare's sake? And that's the worst part of the movie, that little second. So I'm using that as an example to say I watched it fearing the worst and thinking it's not going to be a very thoughtful movie. They're not going to like put everything together and get it the detail that maybe the James Wan other his predecessors have. And I'm wrong. Yes, that bit didn't for me, and it's something that I think, you know what, it's just a bit schlocky, and like you said, probably even care. They just needed that.
Yeah.
Maybe wrote themselves into a corner. But the rest of the film really does, like, can hold its head high next to the other 2.
Yeah.
So, and I just use that as an example because I know there's probably for equal amounts of people that have looked forward to it. I think there was people thinking, "Oh God, it's been a while since the second Conjuring."
Yeah.
So so I'm really really pleased, and I'm eager to see how it ages.
Yeah. Nice one. Right, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Let us know what you thought of The Devil Made Me Do It. Did you think it was a silly title? Did you think it should have been Conjuring 3? Anything. What's your thoughts on the film in general? Do you think there should be more? Let us know. Join us on Facebook. Give us a like, a subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, we'll send a ghost to grab your ankles as you stood facing away from a cliff.
Yes, but we'll be careful not to tell the ghost to pull off Cliff Richard, because that can be messy.
Christmas dance. All right. Well, good night, everyone, and thanks for joining us. See you later, mate.
Take care.